happy you did that day.
Yeah. What's up, baby boy? You all right? Good. Alhamdulillah. I look at you, boy, look like your dad, man.
Yeah. Miss that dude.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. How you doing?
Big oak read joke. Okra and tomatoes.
All right.
Go down and find it.
Yeah, that's why I don't know. That's just like down south.
Huh?
That's just like down south.
Yeah. With what's his name? Married. We got married. Yeah. That young boy. Yeah. I do that. I'm gonna buy a couple of distributors. You don't know.
Yeah, that was a good book.
Yeah.
Before you start, you didn't start yet, right?
No, I mean it's on, but I didn't start yet.
Remember the quote you were saying that if a person fell into something and he started doing good work, like that's a form of tawbah. What was that quote? You remember what I'm talking about? You quoted one of the salaf. You were saying like they said that, for example, a brother sins and he repents, but his repentance is giving dawah. And he gives the dawah because in one form, Shaitan may tell him, sit down, you shouldn't be doing it. But he's doing the jihad because he's fighting Shaitan and he's giving the dawah. You don't remember? It's strong too.
Hopefully, it'll come back to me, inshallah. It'll come back. Okay. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. So we're going to continue with our pre-Ramadan series in preparation for the month of Ramadan, bi'idhnillah. So the first discussion that we had was preparing our homes for Ramadan, and how to prepare our houses to receive the guest of Ramadan. The second discussion that we had was the purpose of fasting, right? We talked about the purpose of fasting, which is to attain taqwa. And then the last class that we had, we talked about what is taqwa. All right, what is taqwa? Right? We gave a host of different explanations from different scholars, and then we combined all of those together to have a general idea of what taqwa means. And then we gave some examples from some of the scholars of the past, and some examples of what taqwa looks like in real life in comparison to our definition and our understanding of taqwa. We say fear Allah, taqillah ya akhi, and things like that. And we're using a phrase essentially that we don't really understand. And then, when you tell someone fear Allah, like, how you know that person is not already fearing Allah? Because if you don't, if you don't have an idea of what something looks like, then it could be staring you right in your face and you wouldn't even know it, So today we're going to talk about, as you can see, each and every lecture, each and every discussion is connected. All right, these are not just stuff that I'm just pulling from nowhere. These are things that are all connected. All right. So once we talk about defining taqwa and just kind of cornering it so that we can have a better idea, a better understanding of what it is. Now let's talk about if the goal of fasting is taqwa. How does that happen? Do we just leave all food, drink, and sexual desires, and then at the end of Ramadan, we're all muttaqeen? Is that how it works? Or is there some type of formula that goes along with that? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyam kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. O you who believe, fasting has been prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those who came before you, so that perhaps you may attain taqwa. So we've already concluded that the purpose of fasting is to attain taqwa. Okay, my question now is, how does that work? Like, what's the formula? Do we just leave all food and drink for the whole 29 to 30 days, and then at the end of Ramadan, we're all muttaqeen? Because if that's the case, then why are we not all muttaqeen? Why do some people go through the whole process of fasting, leaving off food, drink, sexual desires, and then at the end of Ramadan, sometimes they are worse than they were before they entered Ramadan, or the same as they were when they entered Ramadan? So you understand, there has to be some type of connection, some type of formula that helps us connect the two. What is the correlation between fasting and taqwa? How do we leave off food, drink, sexual desires, and then at the end of this process, we have taqwa? Because one would think from reading the ayat that it's just a natural process. It just happens automatically. Poof. You leave off fat, leave off food, drink, sexual desires, and then at the end of 29, 30 days, voila, you're muttaqeen. I wish it was that simple. Literally, wallahi, I literally wish it was that simple. But our reality has shown us that it's not that simple, that there are a couple of steps that we are missing in between. Because some people are fasting, leaving off food and drink and sexual desires, but then at the end of Ramadan, they have not proven to attain taqwa. They didn't attain taqwa. Evidenced by the very next day after the Eid, or sometimes on the day of the Eid. Sometimes their turn up on the Eid is an indication that all you did was just waste your time. You got thirst and hunger because you're going to turn up on the Eid with alcohol and, illegal sexual relations with women or men that you have no business, and that's your turn up on the Eid. How is I'm really confused. Please help me understand. Sometimes I really feel like I don't belong in the Muslim community. I really do. I feel like a stranger. I literally feel like sometimes I'm on an island by myself. Like, am I the only one seeing this? I just refuse to submit to ignorance. I refuse. I wouldn't care if the whole entire Muslim population was ignorant and I wasn't. I'm not going to submit to the majority, to the status quo. I'm not going to do it. And what happens is when you refuse to submit, everybody looks at you like you're the one that's crazy. You understand? And sometimes if you're not strong enough, you'll begin to accept that. Maybe I am crazy. Maybe I need to just do what everybody else is doing. Maybe I just need to dumb myself down, turn my intellect off, and just go with the flow like everybody else. And I refuse. Wallah al-Azim, I refuse. I will die a renegade. By myself solo, I swear to God, I'm not going to submit to that. Please help me to understand how Allah says in the Quran that He prescribed fasting so that the end of that road we attain taqwa, right? And then on the day of the Eid, when we are celebrating the completion of Ramadan, we are engaging in the very acts that contradict a whole entire month of fasting. I mean, please help me to understand that. That means that we are literally walking contradictions. Because your turn up on the Eid or the day after the Eid, khalas, the Eid is over, Ramadan is over, back to doing me. And that means that you didn't attain taqwa, the whole reason why you were leaving off food and drink and sexual desires. I mean, please help me to understand this. So, we're going to talk today about the correlation between fasting and taqwa. What is the connection here? How does one go through a period of 29, 30 days of fasting to arrive at the end of that destination, the end of that journey, arrive at a place of a higher state of spirituality, higher state of God consciousness, because that's what taqwa is. That every walk of your life is infused in that action is the awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How do we get to that state? So let's look at the correlation. So follow me as we walk through this. As human beings, we have been created with a myriad of weaknesses, plethora of weaknesses. We have tons of weaknesses as human beings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا, and the human being has been created weak. And in the Arabic language, the word da'if, which is weak, is nakira. There's no alif or lam there. It's general. meaning that there's not just one weakness, there are a multitude of weaknesses. خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. The human being was created with weaknesses. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also alludes to one of the souls in the Quran. There are 3 different types of souls that are mentioned in the Quran. One of them is the weakest of the 3. In Surah to Yusuf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي. That indeed the soul naturally inclines towards evil, except those whom my Lord has mercy on. There are an exception to the rule, right? Always, istithna, always an exception to the rule. But many souls naturally incline towards evil. These are the type of people who the parents raised them right, and they still find a way to do evil. These are the type of people who you remove them from the environment. You tell them, man, this environment is bad, man. You got to move somewhere, get out of this environment. They move to another environment, and they find the evil in that new environment. Wherever they're at, that's where they are. Wherever you at, that's where you are. No matter what environment we put you in, your natural disposition will expose itself. We can pull you out of the hood, put you in somewhere else, and you'll find your way right back to the hood. Take you out of a situation, and you will naturally incline towards anything that is sinful, disobedient. You'll find it. Yeah.
Being rebellious or just character defects is what you're speaking of.
Well, one is connected to the other. If it's a character defect, then it's the rebelliousness is the character defect. Yes, that's just part of who you are. That's just part of who you are as an individual. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna nafsa la'ammaratun bisu, that the soul naturally inclines towards evil. Illa ma rahima rabbi, unless my Lord has mercy, except those whom my Lord has mercy on. So you have some souls that are just naturally evil. They could come from 2-parent homes, mother, father, good family, right? Good family. And the child still finds himself or herself in situations that is totally contradictory to the lifestyle that the parents are providing for them, because they find it. Evil doesn't find them, they find the evil. No matter what environment, you know what I mean? Like, you could take a guy or a woman married to someone, they have a horrible marriage, and then they blame it on the other person. And then we say, okay, well, let's marry you to a good person. We know that you're married to a good, righteous person, and you still manage to mess up your marriage because that's just who you are. That's just who you are. These weaknesses, they range from impulsivity. We are impulsive. We're hasty. That's part of our weakness. And we inherited that from our father Adam. Before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala finished putting the soul into the body of Adam, it started from the head as it exits from the head, right? It exits from the mouth, which is why, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the eyes follow the soul out of the body. So this is why the eyes open, which is why you got to close the eyes shut, because the eyes are following the soul as it exits the body. So the soul is entering through the head, coming down, animating the entire body. When the soul reaches the waist, Adam sits up and looks at his feet, looks at the rest of his body, tries to get up. And this is the explanation of the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ حَلُوعًا, and the human being was created in haste. خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ مِنْ عَجَلٍ, the human being was created in ajal, hastiness. That's part of our weakness, natural. We have to learn patience and discipline. We learn that. Those are learned behaviors. There's some people who are born naturally like that, but for the vast majority, we're hasty and impulsive, especially boys. Impulsivity in boys doesn't begin to decline until they are well into their 20s. They're very impulsive, almost like animals in nature. We're almost animalistic. We are actually the highest level of animal, all right, as human beings. But these weaknesses, they range from impulsivity to hastiness, to a lack of ambition, to a lack of self-control, as well as constantly fluctuating levels of faith. The fact of the matter is that we cannot contain our faith and make it one way all the time. No human being has the power to do that. And this is why Hanzala, he said about himself, I'm a hypocrite. Abu Bakr met another companion by the name of Hamdala, and he said, Kayfa anta ya Hamdala? And Hamdala said, Hamdala nafaqa. Hamdala is a hypocrite. I'm a hypocrite. And Abu Bakr said, well, why would you say something like that about yourself? He said, because when we're with the Prophet ﷺ, يُذَكِّرُنَا بِالنَّارِ يُذَكِّرُنَا بِالْجَنَّةِ كَأَنَّا رَأْيَ عَيْنٍ. He said, when we're in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ, he is reminding us of paradise, reminding us of the hellfire, as if we could see it with our own eyes. Meaning in those moments, our iman is sky high. He said, but فَلَمَّا خَرَجْنَا مِنْ عِنْدِهِ عَافَسْنَا الْأَزْوَاجِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ وَالنَّسِينَ كَثِيرًا. He said, but when we leave out of the presence of the Prophet ﷺ, we go home to our wives and our children, and we're enjoying family life, and we forget a lot of what he mentioned. Here again, the iman plummets. It plummets. So he's dealing with this fluctuation of his faith, and he chalks it up as hypocrisy. I'm a hypocrite because I can't maintain the same level of faith all the time. That is a human flaw. We have no control over that. And so he went to the Prophet ﷺ. Abu Bakr said, SubhanAllah, I feel the same exact thing that you feel. Showing you, and this is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. This is not your average, Muhammad, Abdurrahman, Abdullah, in our community. We're talking about Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, right? They go to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet said to him, if you could remain the way that you are when you're with me all the time, meaning if you can maintain a steady level of faith all the time, لَصَافَحَتْكُمَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ, then the angels will come down and shake your hands, because it wouldn't be humanly possible. You wouldn't be human if you could maintain the same level of faith all the time. He said, لَكِنْ يَحَمْدَرَ السَّاعَ فَالسَّاعَ. He said, but there's a time for this and there's a time for that. Validating him, making him feel like, here again, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not crazy. You're not a hypocrite. It's normal. It's human. Right? Not like some of our scholars today, you go with them and you say, oh, you need to read more Quran. They literally validate the insecurity that you come to them with. Here you are questioning your faith. You go to an imam, a scholar, and you're trying to get some understanding about what it is you're experiencing, which might in fact just be human. And what does he do? He makes you feel lower than low. It's like, well, you need to read more Quran, akhi. You need to, how much Quran have you memorized? Well, then that's the problem. Well, you need to read more Quran. You need to make more dhikr. It's like, what if it's just human? What if what the person is experiencing is just a natural fluctuation of faith that affects all of us? Do you mean to tell me because you're an imam, a student of knowledge, or a sheikh, that your iman is sky high 100% of the time? Bogus. Unreal. No human being can feel like that all the time. Even Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu validated Hamdallah. He said, I feel the exact same way. Meanwhile, you have people who sit from high places, make you feel like something wrong with you, when in fact you're just normal. You're just human. I mean, come on, man. So this constant fluctuation of levels of faith, which without proper discipline and a system of moral parameters will ultimately lead to our own self-destruction. The highest state of human existence is when the body and the soul are in complete synchrony. The soul that is good and pure, and the body has aligned with it, synchronized with it completely. That is when you have reached the highest level of your human experience. Follow me. So the highest state of human existence is when the body and the soul are in complete synchrony with one another upon the natural disposition that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us upon, what is known as the fitrah. The Prophet ﷺ said, كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ فَأَبَوَاهُ يُهَوِّدَانِهِ أَوْ يُنَصِّرَانِهِ أَوْ يُمَجِّسَانِهِ. He said, every human being was born on the fitrah. That does not mean every human being is born Muslim. Stop saying that. That's not what that means. Muslim is a conscious decision to submit your will to the will of Allah. That's not something that you are born with. But the human being is born with the disposition of a Muslim who constantly makes a decision to submit his will to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the human being is born in a natural state, the natural disposition of submission to God. But as he grows, his environment influences him. The Prophet ﷺ said his parents either make him a Jew, a Christian, or a fire worshiper, i.e. an idolater. So the parents pulled him away from this natural disposition. But left alone, the child will naturally grow up on the fitrah, in the natural state of submission to God, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created him. So the parents are responsible for changing the disposition of the child, or the disposition of the body, not the heart, because in many instances, many of us are Muslim right now because our parents tried to change the disposition physically, but our souls were calling for a deeper understanding of our experience. We started questioning things. Well, why this? Well, if God is all merciful and forgiving, then why are we all born in sin? I really don't understand. Why am I responsible for the sin of somebody else? Why does God need to send his only begotten son to the earth to die for the sins of mankind? Why can't mankind repent for their own sins? Why? Because we were born in sin. But then why are we born in sin? Because of the sin of Adam. But then why am I accountable for the sin of somebody else? We just constantly keep questioning because our parents are trying to pull us away from the natural disposition. They got our bodies, but they don't have our souls. It's like trying to get an organ change. You're trying to change an organ in your body. Let's say a lung. Let's say a kidney. Let's say a heart transplant, right? You are essentially taking something that is naturally a part of your body out of your body and replacing it with the organ that belongs to someone else. It's unnatural. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. Obviously, if that's what you need to survive, then you need to do it self-preservation. All right. But what I'm saying is the process. 9 times out of 10, when you replace that organ, the doctors have to give you medicine that tricks your body into thinking that that organ is yours. Because the moment your body recognizes that the organ does not belong there, it rejects it. Your soul functions the same way. You try to feed your soul a belief that goes against the natural disposition that Allah created it with, it's going to reject it. Which is why you try to feed the child, this belief of Jesus and, inside. The only way the child accepts that is when the child just stops questioning. But eventually, every child has these thoughts that run through their mind that begin questioning these things, which is how many of us ended up here. I know I did. I ended up here. I told my mother at 11 years old, I'm not going to church anymore. That does not make sense to me. I'm sorry. I still believe in God, but that does not make sense to me. And there's nothing that you can tell me that will make it make sense to me. It's not making sense to my soul, not my mind. You can tell me, you can feed me the story, Sunday school. You can feed me the story in 100 different ways, multiple times, over and over and over, from the age of 3 to the age of 10. Feed me the same story over and over and over again, in different ways, in different versions, in different styles. It's the same story that you're trying to implant in my mind. My heart, my soul has not accepted it. This is why our parents say, well, you got the devil in you. You're crazy. It's like, no. You're trying to feed my soul something that is unnatural. The same way the body rejects an organ that is unnatural is the same exact way the soul rejects a belief system that is unnatural, that is not consistent with the fitrah. So the parents are responsible for changing the disposition of the body while the soul is disinclined, which ultimately leads one on a journey to deeper levels of spirituality until they are synchronized and harmonized. All right. And there's another verse in the Quran that points to this, incongruence or this inconsistency due to compulsion, whereby the individual is forced physically, to accept a certain belief, but deep down inside they haven't accepted it. As Allah says in the Quran, وَمَنْ كَفَرَ بِاللَّهِ بَعْدَ إِيمَانِهِ إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرِهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌ بِالْإِيمَانِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and whoever disbelieves in Allah after believing in Him, except the one who is forced by compulsion, while his heart mutma'innun bil iman, while his heart is totally content with true faith in Allah. So Allah is saying what? He's being forced under compulsion to believe and accept something, but his heart is still content with true faith in God. So the person got the body, but they don't have the soul. You understand? And this is just another example. So we are created with a moral and spiritual disposition of faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in pureness that is altered by environments, the environments that encapsulates us, and the exposures that we are introduced to that conflicts with this natural state. So if you notice in the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said every child is born on the fitrah, but his parents either make him a Jew, a Christian, or a Magian, a fire worshiper, he never said that the parents make him a Muslim. Why? Because he's already on the natural disposition of Islam. He's already programmed, already created, right? He's already created with the natural disposition to believe in God and to submit his will or her will to the will of God. Because Islam is the natural disposition. It's the natural religion. At any rate, we discussed in the last session that taqwa is the goal of fasting. During this session, we want to underscore the correlation between fasting and taqwa so that we can continue building our blueprint in order that we reach our destination. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَنْ بِأَنْ تَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهَا وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنِ اتَّقَى وَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ أَبْوَابِهَا وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah number 2, Ayah 189, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهَا, that it is not righteousness to enter into the homes from their rears. This was an Arab tradition that they would not go through the front door, they would enter homes through the back door. And they thought that this was like some sign of righteousness. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that it is not righteousness to enter the home through the back doors. He said, but righteousness, man ittaqa, is the one that has consciousness of Allah, that has taqwa. He said, "Wa'tul buyut min abwabiha," enter into the homes through their proper doors, through the front door. So what I'm saying that to say is that if we want to reach our destination, you got to follow the proper channels. You have to follow the proper channels. You don't just arrive at taqwa. Okay, I fasted the month of Ramadan, I've arrived at a place of taqwa. No, it doesn't work like that. You got to follow the proper protocol. All right? So the correlation between fasting and taqwa goes back to the story of Prophet Adam. Follow me. In that the first test of Adam was what? The first test of Adam was what?
And tested not to approach the tree.
So his test was what? Come on, you're dancing around it. It's there, right there, staring in front of you. Allah told him not to eat from the tree. So his first test was in what?
Obedience.
His appetite.
Yeah.
Ibn al-Qayyim said, أول فتنة تبني أول فتنة في آدم, that the first fitna of Adam was in his appetite, and that is the fitna of his children until Yawm al-Qiyamah. The first fitna of Adam was his appetite. Pay attention. Not his appetite for food, the desire. Because when he saw the tree that Allah told him not to eat from, it now became a desire. We want what we can't have, right? We want what we can't have. So his first test was his desires. You understand? The appetite. Not the appetite for food and drink. The desire. Al-hawa. Right? As it's called in Arabic. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, وَقُلْنَا يَا آدَمُ اسْكُنْ أَنْتَ وَزَوْجُكَ الْجَنَّةِ. And we said to Adam, uskun anta wa zawjuka al-jannah. You live, you and your wife, here in paradise. Then he said, وَكُلُوا مِنْهَا حَيْثُ رَغَدًا حَيْثُ شِئْتُمَا وَلَا تَقْرَبَا هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةَ فَتَكُونَ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. He said, eat from anything you want in paradise. وَكُلَا مِنْهَا حَيْثُ شِئْتُمَا. Eat from anything you want in Jannah. Then he said, وَلَا تَقْرَبَا هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةَ. And do not come close to this tree. فَتَكُونَ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Or you will be amongst the ظَالِمِينَ. We want what we can't have. It's a wonder if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had not told him, don't eat from that tree, would he have even eaten from the tree at all? It wouldn't even been a desire because it wasn't something that you were prohibited from. Once you tell someone they can't have something, it now becomes a desire. It becomes a struggle now because I want to know why I can't have it. Right? Exactly. So Shaitan, he played on one of Adam's weaknesses, one of mankind's weaknesses. And that is the desire to have what we cannot and the desire to be more than what we are. Two of our weaknesses. The desire to have what we can't and the desire to be more than what we are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَ مَا نَهَاكُمَا عَنْ هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ إِلَّا أَن تَكُونَا مَلَكَيْنِ أَوْ تَكُونَ مِنَ الْخَالِدِينَ. Shaitan comes to Adam and says, مَا نَهَاكُمَا, that Allah never prohibited you two from this particular tree, إِلَّا أَن تَكُونَ مَلَكَيْنِ, except that if you ate from it, you would be angels. Being more than what we want, being more than who we are, right? Because if you were content with being who you are, that would have never appealed to you. Want to be more than what we are. And isn't our entire lives as Americans built on being more than what we are? Our entire lifestyles as Americans is built upon being more than what you are. We buy things that we can't afford. We take loans and investments to purchase things that we cannot afford, all to please people and to appease people who don't give a damn about us. That's our lifestyle. Look at women who go on Instagram, take off their clothes to receive likes and reposts from complete strangers. Validation from complete strangers. You step completely outside of your comfort zone of who you are and where you are most comfortable just to get likes and reposts and retweets from absolute strangers. False sense of validation is the new currency for people who are insecure. False sense of validation is the new currency for people who are too damn insecure to see their own worth. Why in the world would I care about a like or a retweet from somebody I don't even know? You mean absolutely nothing to me. Which is why when you post silly comments under my Instagram page, I just delete it and block you because your comment means nothing to me because I don't even know you. The only way that you can really hurt somebody is when you're close to them. Even from an Islamic standpoint, the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-hamu al-maut, the brother-in-law is like death to the marriage. Why? Because he's the closest person to the wife. You can only hurt somebody when you're close to them. You posting something under my page, that does not hurt me. I don't care how disrespectful it is. It doesn't hurt me because I don't even know you. And I just delete your comment and block you. And then you go create a fake page and you log back onto my page and then I block you again. Because I'm aware of all the ghost pages. So if you follow my page, the thing is that you don't have to follow my page. My page is open. So if you want to see what I'm posting, just log in, just check me out. You don't have to follow me to get an the date update or what Shadeed Muhammad is doing. Like, why you play yourself? You go create a ghost account just to follow this guy, just to see what he's posting on a day-to-day, so I can be the first one to catch his deviance and post it. It's like, go get a life, man. Go on vacation, man. You invested too much time in this stuff, man. Go take your kids to Chuck E. Cheese or something, man. Go do something with your life. You guys are investing too much time in this stuff, man. Most of the time I post something and I don't even look at it for the rest of the day. Like I look at it at night when I got some time to take a scroll through or just checking to make sure nobody posted nothing disrespectful. Other than that, I don't care. And I don't comment because I'm not a commentator. I don't comment. I create content. I don't comment. I let you do the commenting if that's what you want to do. But, I mean, you can pass by somebody's page, see something you don't like, and just keep it moving. You got to comment. Right. We just invest too much time and energy, I swear to God. It's baffling to me, man. I'm sorry. I can't invest myself into that. I'm sorry. But the correlation here is that Shaitan played on one of Adam's weaknesses. He said that Allah only prevented you from eating from the tree, lest you become like an angel, or takuna min al-khalidin, or you will live forever. Here is that desire to be more than what we are. We secretly hate our weaknesses. Hence the fact we always deny them when somebody points it out to us. When somebody points out one of our weaknesses to us, whether in a character flaw, or some type of mistake that we've made, we reject it. We come up with all ways of deflecting and all the ways to reject what you're saying, which is essentially arrogance. The Prophet ﷺ, what did he define arrogance as? He said arrogance, al-kibr batrul haqq wa ghamtun nas. He said that kibr, arrogance, is rejecting the truth when it comes to you, even if it's about yourself. Even if it's about yourself. You're still rejecting the truth. Someone is bringing the truth to you about you, and you reject it. Nah, I didn't do that. I didn't say that. I didn't mean that. Well, my intentions was well. We find 1,000,001 ways to deflect simply because we hate our weaknesses. We hate when it's brought to our attention, especially African Americans. We hate when somebody hold a mirror up to us. We can't handle it. We rather fight you for pointing it out to us. We'd rather knock your head off for simply pointing out something in us. And of course, we inherited that from our parents, man, because our parents, they ruled with iron fists. Everything that they said was law. They could never be corrected or checked about anything. And we inherited that. And at some point, we got to break that cycle. Islam teaches us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ayyuhan nabi ittaqillah. O Prophet, fear Allah. And if the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam could be told, fear Allah by God, there's nobody that is above being told, fear Allah. Nobody that is above that. That's the first ayat. Ya ayyuhan nabi ittaqillah. O Prophet, fear Allah. And that doesn't mean that he wasn't fearing Allah. It could have possibly been just a reminder to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But nonetheless, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminded him of that. There's nobody that is above being pointed out your flaw, your mistake. Nobody is above that. And we have to learn how to break this cycle of ruling with the iron fist. Do as I say do. It's like, yeah, but mom, you just told me not. Don't say one more word. It's just like you point out something that your mom or your dad did wrong, and they're going to beat you for it. And we've carried that in our society. We've carried that in our culture as African Americans. Islam teaches us to function a little differently, to humble ourselves and be able to accept that. All right? Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, may Allah have mercy on the person who directs me to my sins, to my mistakes. He made dua. May Allah have mercy on the person who points out to me my mistake. And in our day and time, oh no, don't hold the mirror up to me. I'm going to break the mirror and I'm going to crack you over the head with the glass for holding it up. All right, so we hate our weaknesses. Hence, we always deny them, which is essentially another weakness known as arrogance, which is explained why Shaitan couldn't prostrate to Adam, because he simply could not accept the truth about himself, and that was that he was not better than Adam. Why you think Shaitan couldn't prostrate? When Allah commanded him prostrate to Adam, what did he say? I'm better than him. Because he could not accept the truth about himself, that you are not better than him. وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. Allah taught Adam the names of everything. Adam had knowledge about things that not even the Malaika had. And then Shaitan just could not face the reality that there's another creation out there better than me. So he puffed himself up in front of, here again, shrinking in front of the greatness of somebody else. I can acknowledge your greatness and acknowledge mine at the same time. I don't have to shrink because you're great, because you have a PhD, or because you did this or you did that. Great, kudos to you. But I'm not going to just deny the greatness in myself as well because I see the greatness in you. Look at Kobe and Michael Jordan. He refused. Like, I'm going to play you until I beat you because I think I'm great too. Like, that doesn't mean that you're not Michael Jordan. You're the greatest of all time. You're the GOAT, but I'm the GOAT too. You understand? I don't have to shrink in front of your greatness. And this is where jealousy, envy, we see somebody coming around the block with a Bentley or this. It's like, man, this nigga, man, this dude, man, he ain't all that. You know what I mean? It's like, why can't you just compliment him on like, yo, you got that off? But I don't have to shrink in front of that. I'm still a GOAT too. I'm still great too. But we don't know how to do that. And that's what Shaitan's problem, that was his dilemma. He could not recognize. Don't you know, Shaitan, Iblis, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the status that Iblis used to worship Allah amongst the angels, the only jinn. You know what I mean? He wasn't no nobody. He had great status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before this incident. But his fear that Adam might be better than me. And this is what essentially happens in our communities. Guy graduates from the Islamic University, you know, the imams that have been on the ground doing their thing for, you know, however many years they've been doing their thing. And then here comes this, you know, green around the ears, naive student of knowledge, graduate, got all this information and knowledge, bursting out the seams with all of this information. And the fear from the older ones is that this guy actually might outshine me. This guy might actually be smarter than me. This guy might have more knowledge than me. This guy might get more women than me. This guy might have more than me. God forbid. He comes in and outshines me. So we'll bring him in. I'll give you the whole rundown. Bring you in, let you give a couple of lectures, but we watching you, waiting for the mistake. And so we make a mental note of 2, 3, 4 mistakes. And we corner you in the office somewhere, you know, mashallah, that was a good lecture, Sheikh, but let me just bring something to your attention real quick. You know, you said here and here and here, you know, trying to see if you're going to break, trying to see if I can break you down. With every little mistake that they bring to your attention, they break in your spirit to make you start doubting yourself. Here you are, just graduate, you're fresh, you're enthusiastic, and you just want to teach. And you're thinking that you're going to share a platform with all of the imams and students of knowledge who preceded you. And in the meanwhile, they are afraid, scared to death that you are going to certify their irrelevance. And so what they do is they either get you on board, Hank, you know, so when you get up and you want to introduce the old head, you say, you know, our brother, our sheikh, who's been around in the Taqwah for X amount of years, blah, 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 blah. We want to sing your praise so that when you come on, you're still the man. Sick, man. This stuff is sick. Because the fear is that this young guy is going to certify my irrelevance. This young guy. Because we don't honor the shelf life that we all have. Every single one of us. There will come a day where y'all going to get tired of hearing Shadeed Muhammad. You're going to get tired of some new student of knowledge is going to come along with more enthusiastic, more energy, more articulation, and all of the old lectures of Shadeed Muhammad is just going to be like, yeah, you know, that brother, he used to give it up. But we listening to somebody else now. And I pray that when that day comes, I'm able to submit to the reality of my irrelevance. Not that I'm irrelevant, that I don't matter anymore, but I'm not that guy. Everybody has their shelf life. Everybody has their window of, you know, being in the spotlight. Everybody. And then there's just some people who cannot submit to that. They have to stay on the scene, have to remain relevant, and I will pull down every single student of knowledge that comes in my way, in my path. I will pull them down, every single one of them. At the expense of what, though? At the expense of what? You're going to maintain your relevance at the expense of the whole entire African-American Muslim community benefiting from these people. That's a fact. Here again, that same mentality will burn the whole house down simply because we can't run it. I know people like that. If I ain't running it, I'm shutting it all down. Stuff that dudes I used to hang with in Jahiliyyah who used to say stuff like that. Like if I can't get in, we'd be at a house party, chick having a party at her house. You know, we all go in, but you know, there's always that one dude, you don't want him to come because he just ruined the party every single time. Come in drunk, you don't want to fight with everybody. It's like, we just want to have a good time. So we don't tell you. But then somehow he finds out and he shows up to the door. The girls are arguing at the door. We not letting you in. And he's like, man, if I can't get in, I'm shutting the whole thing down. Right? That dude. That mentality. We brought that with us to Islam. If I'm not running the show, it ain't going to be no show. I remember times there was conferences where certain speakers would not come and speak and let the people benefit from him simply because there was another student of knowledge there. Nope. I ain't coming. I'm going to take my toys and I'm going to go play somewhere else. So I'm going to deprive the entire Muslim community from what I have to offer simply because I don't want to share a platform with that guy because I don't want to make him famous. Believe it or not, he's going to be famous whether you like it or not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control. You are not in control. And when you're seeing your relevance just slipping right through your fingers and there's nothing you can do about it, it frustrates the hell out of you. And you're going to do everything in your power to remain that guy. This is our dilemma. Right now, this is why we are in the situation that we are in right now. I'm telling you from somebody who knows what goes on behind the scenes. Because people just can't submit. You know, as the saying goes, never play the superhero so long that you end up becoming the villain. Because you don't know when to hang up your cape. So now you the bad guy. You was the good guy. Saving the world. Saving the Salafi community. And now you the bad guy. You the villain. You know, it is what it is, man. So we secretly, hate, and abhor our own weaknesses because they represent limitations. And in our own self-delusion, we like to think that we don't have any limitations. So we're born in an environment of cultural nuances and traditions that have a tendency to pull us away from that natural disposition, forcing those who are conscious enough to understand this to unlearn a lot of the things which we were taught to eventually bring us back into synchrony with our souls, with our hearts and our souls, essentially reaching the pinnacle of our human existence, having complete harmony and peace both internally and externally. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the second soul in the Quran, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna. Oh, you tranquil soul, nafsul mutma'inna, the soul that has reached the pinnacle of peace and harmony. So we have to begin unlearning a lot of the stuff that we were taught. Assalamu alaikum. We have to begin unlearning a lot of the stuff that we were taught so that we can bring, our hearts and our souls and our bodies back into complete synchrony. Part of what helps us to maintain this peace and harmony is balance. And this is why one of the essential elements of the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the main qualities that separates our Ummah from all other Ummahs is al-wasatiyah. Balance, being in the middle, treading that middle course. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. And likewise, we have made you an ummah that takes the middle course, always balanced. And much of what contributes to our destruction is our imbalance as a result of our excessiveness, whether to the left or to the right. A shaitan doesn't really care whether you go too far to the left or too far to the right, just as long as you never hit your target. And transgressing moral and spiritual boundaries that have been put in place to ensure the right amount of balance in our lives, which contributes to our peace and harmony. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like excess of any kind, whether in our wealth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna mubadhirina kanu ikhwana shayateen, that indeed mubadhirin are those who spend excessively. You spend beyond your means, spend for things that you don't need, spend thrift. Every time you get your money, you spend it excessively. They are the brothers of shaitan, brothers of the devil. Whether it is our practice of the religion, the Prophet ﷺ said, Inna hadha deen mateen, len yashad deen ahadun illa ghalabahu. No one seeks to go to, this religion is a strong religion. None seeks to go to the extreme in the religion except that the religion will overtake him. That's even in our practice of the deen. You remember the hadith of the three men who came to the house of the Prophet ﷺ. One of them said, I'm going to stand up all night and pray, never go to sleep. The other one said, I'm going to fast every single day, never break my fast. And the other one said, I will never get married. And what did the Prophet ﷺ do? He had to bring balance. He found those three men, walked through the marketplace looking for them. You the three men that came to my house and said so-and-so? He said, indeed, I fast and then I break my fast. I pray part of the night and I sleep part of the night. And I marry women. Meaning not getting married does not mean that you're somehow more religious than the other person. Half of the bulk of what we have to do in our deen is in the institution of marriage. So not getting married doesn't make you righteous. He said, وَمَنْ رَغِبَ عَنْ سُنَّتِي فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي. Whoever turns away from my sunnah, then he is not of me. He's not practicing the religion of the way that I demonstrated. A wasatiyah, that balance, not being excessive. Even in laughing, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Iyakum wa kathratul dhahik." I warn you against excessively laughing and joking. فَإِنَّ كَثْرَةَ الضَّحِكِ يُمِيتُ الْقَلْبِ تُمِيتُ الْقَلْبِ. That laughing excessively, it deadens the heart, causes your heart to die. You don't take stuff seriously when you need to take it seriously. So even excessiveness in laughing, even excessiveness in our emotions. Yeah, people say, I love unconditionally. No, we have conditions to our love. We have conditions to our love. Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, Habib habibaka hunin ma, asa an yakun baghidaka yawmin ma. Love the one that you love in moderation. Don't go to the extreme in that love, because the one that you love may one day have to be the one that you hate. But if you go to the extreme, then what happens when, you got to hate that person? You can't do it. You can't do it. The Prophet ﷺ said, Inna Allah la yaghdab idha mudih al-fasik, that Allah gets angry when a fasik is praised. When you know a person is sinful, disobedient, and you still praise them. Allah gets angry because you can't, your love for them is unconditional. And likewise, on the flip side of that, is to hate the person in moderation. So even with emotions like love and hate, there has to be a balance. We don't hate unconditionally and we don't love unconditionally. There's always a balance. It's always accordingly. Always. And the important act of moderation that concerns us today is the moderation in our intake of food. Why are we talking about fasting and, limiting the amount of food that we are ingesting or taking, the amount of drink, the amount of sexual relations that we engage in? Why is that now in the month of Ramadan being regulated? All right. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, eat and drink, وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا, and don't be excessive in your eating and your drinking. For indeed Allah loves not those who are excessive. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. And the scholars of tafsir, they say about this ayah, كُلُّ شَيْءٍ جَاوَزَ حَدَّهُ انْقَلَبَ ضِدَّهُ. There's a principle in Islam that everything, كُلُّ شَيْءٍ جَاوَزَ حَدَّهُ, everything that exceeds its limits, انْقَلَبَ ضِدَّهُ, will have the opposite effect. Everything. Take this as a general principle because it can apply in every area of our lives. Everything that transgresses the boundary, transgresses a limit, a set limit, انْقَلَبَ ضِدَّهُ, it will have the opposite of impact, will have the opposite effect. So if you love to the extreme, you go overboard in your love, it will turn out to be the opposite of what you wanted it to be. Likewise with hate, likewise with any other thing that we do. And the purpose of moderating our intake of food, our appetite, is because a lack of discipline with respect to food and drink will also result in the lack of discipline in other areas of our lives, including but not limited to our sexual appetite. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Ma mala'a ibnu Adam wi'a'an sharran min batnihi," that the child of Adam has never filled anything more evil for him than his stomach. The child of Adam has never filled anything that is more evil than his own stomach. He said, "Bihasbi ibni Adam laqimat yuqimna sulbahu." It is sufficient for the child of Adam a few morsels of food just to keep his back upright. What is sufficient? And wallahi, even now today, I eat only in, just to keep myself going. You know how you haven't eaten anything all day. You don't even have a desire for food. You just eat because you know that your body needs it. And that's it. And then you're monitoring what you're putting in your body because you want it to be healthy so that you can get the best out of your body. You can put a whole bunch of sugar in your body. Sugar is a downer, not an upper. It's just like alcohol. Alcohol is a downer, not an upper. It looks like it's an upper because when you drink, it looks like you get energy, but alcohol has high levels of sugar in it. So what happens? You crash. What happens when you take a lot of sugar? You're hyper, but then when that sugar begins to, you get tired. You feel tired, right? We eat enough to keep our backs upright. to keep our bodies moving. So to keep us energized, to get what we need from our bodies. We need ibadah, we need worship. So we eat food, healthy food. We ingest food that is going to give us the best bang for our buck, so to say. All right? But the Prophet ﷺ said that it is sufficient for the child of Adam, just a few morsels of food, jazakallah khairan, just to keep his back upright. He said, فَإِنْ كَانَ لَبُدٍّ فَاعِلًا, he said, and if he has to eat, he said, give you the breakdown. The Prophet ﷺ is so wise. He said, فَثُلُثٌ لِطَعَامِهِ, then you should fill your stomach, your intestines, 1/3 with food. وَثُلُثٌ لِشَرَابِهِ, and 1/3 for drink. If you go beyond, you can probably seen this in your own life. If you eat more, if you fill more than 1/3 of your intestine, of your lower intestine with food, you don't have enough room for drink. You don't have enough room for drink. 1/3 for food, 1/3 for drink, and the other third for air. But if you go beyond that 1/3 and trickle over into the 2/3, you don't even have enough room for air. You ever eat so much you can't breathe? Absolutely. Because here again, anything that goes beyond its boundary is going to have the opposite effect. Not only are you full, you're ready to go to sleep. Your body is shutting down because it's working overtime trying to process all of the food that you just put inside of you. The Prophet ﷺ was wise. He knew what he was talking about. Ibn al-Qayyim, pay attention to this. I love Ibn al-Qayyim. When I hear his name and I know the person is about to translate something from him in Arabic into English, I can, you can just let your mind relax and just absorb, sponge. Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, maratib al-ghida thalatha, that the levels of food are three. 3 levels to food. He said, ahaduha maratabatu haja. He said the first level is the level of necessity. Haja. That you eat what is necessary. He said, wathaniya maratabatu kifaya. He said the second level of food is sufficiency. To suffice yourself. The first level is you eat what is necessary. The second level is you eat to be sufficed, satiated. He said the third level, ومرتبة الثالثة الفضيلة, is the third level is excess. The excess, which is where we get jammed up because we don't know when to stop. We think that because we see everything on our plate, I got to eat everything right now. Brother sent me a message on Instagram the other day. He said, I had a conversation with my young daughter, and I told her, you're eating all of your food, you're stuffing yourself. Stop eating, you're stuffing yourself. And he said, his daughter replied, well, didn't the Prophet ﷺ say, eat everything that's on your plate because you don't know what a barakah is? I love the dialogue, mashallah. Father and daughter. So he messages me to say, well, how do I respond to her? Because it looks like she has a point. How do I respond to my daughter with this response? And I said, it's very simple. Just tell her, yes, validate. I said, validate her first because you want to let her know, baby girl, you are on point. MashaAllah. You want to validate that, baby girl. I love your answer. Yes, the Prophet ﷺ did say, eat everything on your plate because you don't know what the barakah is. But you don't have to eat it all right now. You can wrap your plate up and you can finish the rest tomorrow for lunch. So we have to validate our children. When our children give us something from Islam, don't take that away from them because you want to be right. Our incessant need to be right makes us wrong. We have to be right all the time. Sometimes at the expense of just completely invalidating somebody that we love, that is in front of us. I said, the first thing you do is validate her. Tell her she's absolutely right. The Prophet ﷺ did say that. Because there's not too many of our children who can quote the Prophet ﷺ, you know what I mean? And use it in a way where it's applicable. So give her credit for that. But let her know that although you got to, as a dad, as the adult, you got to bring some wisdom to that. She had to plate of food. She didn't have no salt and pepper on it. Let me spice it up for you. Yes, you can eat all of your food, but you don't have to eat it right now. If you're stuffed, wrap your plate up, put it away, and finish it tomorrow. You said Bismillah over it so the jinn can't eat from it. It's good. It's safe. You're good. Right? So, essentially, we're talking about, I'm almost done, mastery of ourselves. Using food, drink, and sexual desires as a means of attaining taqwa. We're trying to master ourselves. Hassan al-Basri, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, لا يزال بخير ما كان له واعظا من نفسه. That the human being, the servant will never cease to remain upon good so as long as he has someone within himself to remind him of himself. Wa'id min nafsi, someone who is going to admonish him from inside. We're talking about mastering ourselves. Hassan al-Basri, rahimahullah ta'ala, he also said, La teskunu al-hikmah fi batn al-mali'in. That hikmah, wisdom, does not reside in a stomach that's full. Can't function when you're full. So we remove the food and drink from us during Ramadan so that we can gain mastery over ourselves. Trying to gain control over ourselves. And quite naturally, many of us, we need self-control at this point. Many of us have let ourselves go on so many levels. Find ourselves engaging in behaviors and things that we would have never thought about doing. Right or wrong? We've all reached that point, that destination in our lives where we are now doing things and we're saying, astaghfirullah, man. I know I'm dead. Now, I would have, 5 years ago, man, this joint would have been haram for me. And now here you are. And now here you are. Because you have let yourself go. And we can never let go. You got to constantly, it's a personal jihad with yourself. Constantly, you can never let yourself go. The moment you let go, the soul will overtake. It will overtake. And when you look at our society, much of much of what is under attack by way of capitalism today is these two appetites: the appetite for food and sex. Every other commercial is about food: McDonald's, Burger King, have it your way. You know, this meal, that meal, this deal, that deal, right? Popeyes and Chick-fil-A and all of this other stuff. And that's the appetite. And then the sexual appetite. Porn is on every corner. Literally. So the two appetites that are under attack through capitalism. Basically, capitalism is supply and demand. We find out what your demands are, and we supply you with everything you need. You want to have sex with a doll? We're now creating dolls, right? With, we're putting Siri into the sex dolls now so she can talk to you. You can buy wigs, you can buy faces, you can buy different colors. You can spice it up any way you want because we've now seen that there's a demand and we're trying to meet that demand. So essentially, our government is doing to us, by way of our desires, exactly what Shaitan did to Adam. Sit back, watch you where your weakness is, watch what your desires are, and then we appeal to you through it. The very same way. It's evil, man. It really is evil. Because there is no limits to morality. There are no more parameters for morality anymore. Have it your way. Have fun. So the appeal is to these two desires, knowing that most people don't exercise the control or the discipline in these areas that is, sufficient enough to, resist. The Prophet ﷺ is basically stating the fact that fasting helps us to not only discipline our intake of food, but also to discipline our sexual appetite. If you look at the hadith when the Prophet ﷺ was addressing the young men, he said, Ya ma'ashar al-shabab, man istata'a minkum al-ba'a falyatazawwaj. Oh, you group of young men, pay attention. Oh, you group of young men, shabab. He's not addressing the older men in the community. He said, oh, group of young men, whoever from amongst you has the ability to get married, then let him do so. فَإِنَّهُ أَغَضُّ لِلْبَصَرِ وَأَحْسَنُ لِلْفَرَجِ. It will help you to lower your gaze. It will help you to guard your chastity. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِيعْ فَعَلَيْهِ بِالصَّوْمِ. And whoever from amongst you does not have the ability to get married, then let him fast. فَإِنَّهُ لَهُ وِجَاء. Because fasting will serve as castration. It will cut off the desire. Fasting will cut off the desire. Fasting will slow down the libido. Fasting will slow up the libido. That desire for sex. which is rampant in young men because they have higher levels of testosterone, especially around 18, 19, 20 years old. The libido is high because the testosterone levels are out the roof. As older men, as we get older, our testosterone levels start to drop. But notice the Prophet is addressing the young men in the community. As I stated before, the greatest threat to a healthy Islamic community is young men, unmarried, single, bachelors. The greatest threat, not a woman, because a woman could just marry a man who's already married and just become a second, third, or fourth wife, marry into polygyny. She has options. A man who is single, he only got one or two options, either to get married or not get married and still engage in sexual relations. And many do. The single threat, the single most dangerous threat to a healthy Islamic community is a single man. He's a threat to himself, and he's a threat to other people in the community. How many people have gone to conferences and things in the past, and you are afraid that taking your wife, because there's a bunch of young men roaming around the hallways, you don't know if somebody is going to, I can't count how many times, brother sends his kid over to my wife to ask her if she married, my wife was wearing niqab, so, I'm guessing he didn't know that it was, my wife or that the woman was married, but this is what happens. Because you're a young man floating around an Islamic conference single. And these are the type of threats that exist in our community. So, it's not putting men on blast, but it's also making us aware of our weaknesses. There's a reason the Prophet ﷺ addressed the young men, and he never said young women. He never said to the women to get married. He said the group of young men, whoever from amongst you has the ability to get married. So the Prophet ﷺ, he alluded to in another hadith that, it's not characteristic of older men to sleep around. That's not characteristic. As the Prophet ﷺ said, there's three people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will neither speak to, will neither purify them for their sins, and for them is a painful punishment. He will not speak to them, nor will he look at them, nor will he purify them for their sins, and for them is a painful punishment. Four things. Three people. The first one of those three is Sheikhun Zanin, is an older person, gray beard, who still commits fornication. Why is this punishment so severe with him? Because it is uncharacteristic of an older man to still not have or exercise self-control. That is something that is characteristic of young men. Ya ma'ashara shabab, oh, you group of young men. He's not addressing the older men because by the time you reach a certain age, you should have learned to discipline yourself. How many years have you fasted? You've been Muslim for 30 years? You hear people beating their chest. I've been Muslim since the 70s. I've been Muslim since the first. Well, you wasn't Muslim at the first, but nonetheless, I get your point, right? I've been Muslim since this, or I've been Muslim since that. Okay, you beat your chest about how many years you've been Muslim. Look at your behavior. You still have not arrived at a place where you've learned to discipline your soul. You ought to be embarrassed beating on your chest so hard about how many years you've been Muslim. You've been Muslim since the 60s. You've been Muslim since the 70s. You were Muslim while I was still as a kafir. I had a brother tell me that. I was Muslim when you were still a kafir. Okay, great. You were Muslim when I was a kafir. But look at your Islam. Obviously, being Muslim since I was a kafir didn't really do much for you because you still look at your behavior. Look at your character. Look at how you conduct yourself as a Muslim. You ought to be ashamed of yourself to beat your chest so hard to say how long you've been Muslim and you still have yet to discipline your soul to be in complete conformity with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You still not nafsun mutma'inna? You're still not a tranquil soul? You're still the first soul in nafs al-ammaratum bis-su? You're still the first soul that inclines towards evil? You still haven't disciplined? How many Ramadans you fasted? You fasted 20 Ramadans? 30 Ramadans, and you still haven't learned mastery over yourself? Think about that. I want every one of us. I've been Muslim, converted to Islam in 1997. So what's that, 23 years? I've been Muslim 23 years. If I'm still functioning after 23 years of fasting, the same way I did, or even worse, when I first converted to Islam, then what is my Islam doing for me? Go figure. Why are you even Muslim? Because our religion is about work, al-amal, shukr. And if you're not doing the work, then you're just floating along. I'm Muslim, and I don't eat pork. And my name is Rahim, and my name is, Abdullah, or whatever your name is. And that's it. That's the extent of your Islam. You fasted for 23 years, once a year. I mean, add that up. How many days is that? That's 30. Let's just round it off to 30. 30 times 23. How much is that? That's almost 1,000 days. That's over the 500 mark. Over 1,000 days since you've been Muslim fasting. Some of you guys have been Muslim longer than that. You've been Muslim 30 years. You've been fasted 30 Ramadans. You got 1,000 days of fasting in your entire life. And after 1,000 days of fasting in your entire life as a Muslim, you still have not learned to discipline your soul. Still not have learned to conform to the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It speaks volumes to, where we at. And human beings, man, we consist of a heart and a soul. And, once the heart is mustaqim, once the heart is steadfast, the rest of the body falls in line. So it's not the body. It's the heart and the soul. The Prophet ﷺ said, in the body, there's a lump of flesh. If it is sound, if it is healthy, if it is upright, the rest of the body will be upright. The body will naturally conform. So that means that our blueprint hasn't been working for us, because all we've been focusing on is the physical. I pray 5 times a day. My pants is rolled up above my ankles. I got a beard. I got a prostration mark. I come to the masjid. I come to Jumu'ah. I give a few dollars sadaqah here and there where it's convenient for me. I put on all black. I wear overgarment. I do this. I do that. I read Quran. We've been functioning on the external, but the internal has still not conformed. We've been doing the work from the outside in, and it's supposed to be from the inside out, which is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not reveal the ayats about hijab, did not reveal the ayats about alcohol until 5 years after they have migrated to Medina. That means 18 years, 13 years in Mecca, 5 years in Medina, a total of 18 years. Allah never said anything about the hijab. Meanwhile, it's the first thing that a woman has to conform to when she converts to Islam, because our concentration is from the outside in, and Islam's concentration is from the inside out. The Prophet ﷺ said, in the body there's a lump of flesh. If it is sound, if it is healthy, then the rest of the body will be the same. It will function accordingly. You guys following me? Am I making sense? But we are not attacking the inside. We stay on the surface, on the external. And our hearts are still corrupt. Our hearts never changed. This is why you can, as I heard you when I was making salat, you can have your pants rolled all the way up here, and then when you give a brother salams, you ice grilling him like you really want to kill him. Like you really want to do some bodily harm to the person. How you give a person, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah, and you ice grilling the person? Like you a walking contradiction. Because you are greeting me with a greeting of peace, but your face reeks of violence. You are contradiction. Right? Your face reeks of violence, bodily harm that you want to do to a person. But the words that are coming out of your mouth is a greeting of peace. So which is it? Do you really wish me peace, or do you really want to do some bodily harm to me? You understand? I have a heart monitor on my phone, so monitoring my heart. My heart rate is like through the roof at this point. I'm passionate. I just want us to realize our errors. Like, if I died tomorrow, I would really hope that I can stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, I tried. But it's like, we have been functioning in the negative for so many years. And it's like we can't really begin to see a lot of positive because we're working our way out of the negative. Some of our imams and students of knowledge and preachers and teachers, and they may have meant well, they have set us back generations. set us back generations. With all of the information and knowledge that we have about Islam that our parents and grandparents did not have about Islam, you would think that we would be so more advanced. You got new converts quoting scholars and quoting Ibn Taymiyyah and blah, 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 which is great. But how have we seen that manifest in the terms of building communities and the organization of communities? We haven't seen any of that. Any of that. So it's like, where's our progress? I mean, all of this is great. We sit down, we remember Allah, we give some lectures or whatever, but is that the best that we can offer as an Islamic community? That's the best that we can offer with all of the information that we have? With all of what we know about Islam, man, we should be generations ahead. We should be so far advanced. But we have a couple of elements within us that keep holding us back. We have the potential to be great. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in the sad state that we're in. There are people, the powers that be, know that we have the potential. They know. We don't recognize our own greatness, but there are powers that be that know. And they make sure that we stay functioning on this lower level, this surface. They make sure we stay right where we are. Because God forbid these guys were to get their act together, learn how to, put their differences aside and work towards the advancements of their community, we would be great. We would be unstoppable.
That's right.
We would be unstoppable. And they know that. So essentially fasting is our own personal jihad against our own vices, our nafs, our hearts, our bodies, to get it to conform. And then ending, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ankabut, Surah 29, Ayah 69, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. And those who wage war in our cause. And here this ayah is talking about the jihad of nafs, the jihad that you wage against yourself, the war you wage against your own vices. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا. Those who wage war in our cause, لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. We will guide them to the paths of safety and peace and security and harmony. We will guide them to that.
69, right?
Yes, Surah 29, 69. One of the scholars of the past, he said, جَاهَدْتُ نَفْسِي أَرْبَعِينَ حَتَّى تَسْتَقِيمُ. He said, I waged war against myself, against my own vices for a period of 40 years until my soul was mustaqim, was, steadfast. And so it reached one of the other scholars that he said that. And he said, I was taqamet. He said, well, did your soul conform after that? He said, because I waged war against myself for 40 years and my soul still has not conformed. And these were people who lived in the best of times, in the best of eras. And we are the people that are living in the worst of times and the worst of eras. And where are we as it relates to, the effort that they put forth in trying to make them, their souls, their hearts, their bodies, all synchronized upon the natural disposition that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. So, to answer the question that I asked at the beginning, how does leaving off food, drink, sexual desires help us to arrive at a place of taqwa? Can you guys answer that now? How?
By working and denying yourself a lot of the habits you used to have, to shun them so we can be better.
Right. So essentially you're giving up something to get something. You want taqwa, but in order to achieve it, you got to give something up, something that you actually really need. Food, drink, sexual desires. You got to give that up in order to achieve taqwa. But if you are giving up food and drink and your goal is not to reach taqwa, then the only thing you get from your fasting is thirst and hunger, because you're not achieving your goal. Which is why the Prophet ﷺ said, he who does not leave off lying and, bearing false witness, then Allah is not in need of you leaving off your food and your drink, because you are defeating your own purpose. You're not achieving the goal of fasting, which is taqwa. So at the end of Ramadan, if you plan on going back to being who you were and engaging in the behaviors that you were engaging in, and Ramadan is just basically an obstacle, for a period of 29 to 30 days, then you're wasting your time. You might as well not even fast. You might as well just continue doing you. And deal with the embarrassment of other Muslims looking at you like, yo, why you not praying? Like, deal with that embarrassment. But don't waste your time because you figure I'm going to just do whatever the Muslims are doing. And then at the end of Ramadan, I'm going to just go back to, doing me. It's asinine. In essence, it's really asinine, And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a'lam wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama tasliman kathira. وسبحانك ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. It's time for Maghrib? Okay, somebody want to call the adhan?
You got it, Shay?
That's you.